A peasant revolt in 751 led to the deposition of the last Merovingian king and the coronation of a new king of the Franks, one that would later become the first Holy Roman Emperor. He was known as Charles the Hammer for his habit of solving problems with blunt force, but how did he go from king of a small Germanic tribe to founding the Holy Roman Empire? Well, let's find out. Welcome to Bible and History. Today we will be looking at the rise of Charlemagne, the man who would go from being the king of a minor Germanic tribe to the most powerful ruler in Western Europe and the founder of the Holy Roman Empire. After deposing the last Merovingian king, Pepin the Short, the new king of the Franks in 751, Pepin turned to Pope Stephen II for recognition. In return, he granted the Church the right to collect taxes from his subjects, which helped the papacy greatly. However, it also set a precedent for future popes to meddle in secular affairs. Following this, Pepin campaigned against the Lombards in northern Italy and defeated them, expanding Frankish territory there. After conquering the Lombards, Pepin campaigned against the Saxons in the north. But they proved to be stubborn and would rebel against Frankish rule time and time again. When Pepin died in 768, his sons, Charlemagne and Pepin, inherited his kingdom. However, their uncle, Charlemagne, seized power in the northern part of the kingdom after a successful military campaign against the Saxons. Although an agreement was reached where Charlemagne would adopt the royal title while Pepin would keep the real power, it soon fell apart and a civil war erupted between the two brothers. In 771, Charlemagne died, likely of natural causes, and Pepin annexed his brother's lands, uniting the Frankish people under one ruler. Shortly after, he went to war against the Lombards again, this time taking the title of King of the Lombards in addition to his other titles. Pepin also campaigned against the Avars in modern-day Hungary, although he didn't achieve much success there. He then set his sights on the Saxons once more, determined to finally subdue them. After years of back and forth, during which Pepin built a massive palace in modern-day Ingelheim, and the Saxons were finally defeated and forced to convert to Christianity. However, not all Saxons converted and many would continue to resist Frankish rule for decades to come. In 788, Pepin campaigned against the Danes in modern-day northern Germany and Frisia. He even pushed into England. But his invasion force was defeated by the English at the Battle of the River Wish in 789. Despite this setback, Pepin continued to expand his empire. In 793, he took the title of King of the Bavarians after subduing them, and in 795, he conquered the independent Frankish nobles in the region of Septimania, and during this time he appointed many of his relatives to positions of power, creating a sort of imperial court. This attracted the attention of Pope Leo III, who warned him not to appoint unqualified candidates to influential positions. Of course, he didn't listen and the Pope excommunicated him. However, the two soon reconciled and, in 800, Leo crowned Pepin Holy Roman Emperor on Christmas Day. The following year, Pepin set out on his final campaign against the Saxons, but he died of a fever in 814 and was succeeded by his son, Louis the Pious. Louis continued his father's policy of expanding the empire and converting pagans to Christianity. He campaigned against the Saxons, the Avars, and the Bulgarians. Although his campaigns against the Saxons were mostly failures, he was successful against the others. In 817, he crowned his son, Charles, the future Charles the Bald, king of the Romans in 823. When Louis died in 840, the empire was divided among his sons according to the Treaty of Verdun, and Charles received the title of King of the Romans and became the dominant figure in Western Europe. Despite his power, he wasn't very liked by his subjects and he was eventually deposed by his own son, Louis the German, in year 855. After his deposition, Charles lived out the remainder of his life in a monastery until his death in year 877. After Charles's deposition, the empire was split between his sons, Louis and Charles. Although the division wasn't meant to be permanent, it essentially was. The eastern part of the empire, under the rule of Louis, would eventually become known as the East Frankish Kingdom, or the German Kingdom, while the western part would become known as the West Frankish Kingdom, or the French Kingdom. Although the empire founded by Charlemagne only lasted for around 250 years, its legacy would live on for centuries. The imperial title was used by many kings of France and Germany, and the concept of a Christian Roman Empire in the West would influence many rulers throughout history. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more, and thank you to all my supporters for supporting me.